Hello and welcome to the Alexandra Wenman Show, another lovely Zoom edition of the show this evening. And I've got the lovely Katie Oman, who is gosh, what isn't she? She's a writer, she's a writer, author, angel expert, psychic. She even writes for magazines. The girl is like a multi-talented, what do you call it? What's the word when you're a polymath, isn't it? It's polymath.
Yes.
Fabulous. Katie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Alexandra. I'm so excited to be here. It feels like it's been a long time coming, I think.
It has been a long time coming, hasn't it? So
Definitely.
just for the people watching, I want to delve straight into the angels, because you and I sort of connected through the angel world, I suppose.
Yes.
We've had a few people in common over the years. How did you get started working with the angels?
It was really strange, actually, because I know in hindsight now, as these things often happen, that I've kind of been connected to the angels for a long, long time. But it wasn't really until, I would say, around 2014 that I did an angel online course, which really opened me up and showed me how to connect and how to work with them. But I know that, like, my life has been saved by the angels on at least 2 occasions, once when I was 21 and once when I was 30. So I know that, I've always had this connection. It was just up to me really to show up and connect to them rather than connect to me.
Can you share any details of those 2 interventions for us, for those who don't know? Yeah,
absolutely. So just before my 21st birthday, I was pregnant with my first child. And I was around 33 weeks, and I was at home on my own, just, trying to relax, just, flicking through a magazine on my own. It was really quiet. And all of a sudden I had this really loud male voice here that said, "Go to the doctor now." And I was like, my first thought was that somebody had broken in. Like, why would somebody break in and tell me to go to the doctors? I do not know. But this was my first thought. So I kind of tentatively looked around the house. There was nobody there. Or then there's no TV on, no radio. I even looked next door and my neighbours were not there. But when I opened the front door, there were 3 large white feathers on my doorstep. So although at that point I hadn't awakened, there was something, intuitively I was like, there's something going on here. So I went to the doctors, managed to get an appointment, and literally the doctor said, "Go to the hospital now." And so we kind of zoomed off, and it turns out I had preeclampsia. My blood pressure was like off the chart. The doctor at the hospital said if I hadn't have gone in that day, both me and my boy would not be here.
Oh my God.
He was born that night. So it's kind of crazy, how these things happen. And yet I still didn't kind of put the dots together, even like at 30, when we were driving down to Cornwall to see my parents. And we pulled in off the motorway to the services and got petrol and coffee and stuff. And as we pulled back onto the motorway, bear in mind it was a bank holiday weekend, it was Easter, so it was incredibly busy on the motorway. You know what these things are like. And all of a sudden, the lane that we were in had not one car in it. I noticed we were completely just on our own. The next, 2 seconds after that, whatever, all the electrics in the car went out simultaneously. Whoa. So the car rolled to a stop. We're on the motorway. So I just immediately went, "Help, please, somebody, anybody, help." And the car had stopped, rolled itself onto the slip road, onto the embankment. And as soon as it got on there, the lane that we were in suddenly became incredibly busy again.
Oh my God.
And
the angels literally pushed you off the road.
Yeah. And me and my husband just looked at each other. We were like, what the hell happened there? It was bizarre.
Gosh. And now you've written quite a few books, haven't you? Have you written about these experiences in any of your books?
I think I've touched on them briefly. I mean, I've written my second book that I self-published was Little White Feathers, which was how to connect and who the angels are and how you can connect with them. But my personal stories, they tend to get woven through everything that I do. So I've kind of touched on them here and there because they form part of my story, you know.
They are, and it's irrefutable, isn't it? I love those. I love the white feathers too, like the irrefutable evidence. So, are you aware of which angel or who the voice was that spoke to you initially in that first experience?
Yeah, as I say, when I did my angel course, they obviously taught us how to connect to the angels through meditation. And as soon as I went into meditation, Archangel Michael came through. Like he was like
Michael, wasn't it?
He was like here, and he was laughing. He was like, "Nice to finally meet you." And I was like, "Oh, now I get it." Because yeah,
about time you've been called.
Yeah.
Amazing. And can we go back to when it all started for you psychically? Because obviously you do readings and everything. You're very open and intuitive. Was that sort of the first psychic type experience you'd had, or did it start earlier than that?
I've always known that I was different from everybody else around me. I always felt like I didn't really fit in with other people, but tried to, you know, that kind of people-pleasing chameleon type of behaviour. And I've always known that I was really sensitive. Like people would criticise me for being too sensitive and I had to toughen up and all these things. But literally had no sense of direction in my life at all until 2010, to the point that I would try things just to try and find some direction. I've had lots of jobs. I've worked in shops, I've been a barmaid, I've even been a high school teacher. I just tried, because I didn't really know who I was or where I was going, or just thought, well, if I keep trying, I'll figure it out, you know. And
climbing then the different career ladders.
Yeah, exactly. I thought, well, one of them will stick, right? Because the thing about being an adult is, I think nobody really tells you what it's going to be like. And so I kind of thought, well, maybe this is how everybody does it. Maybe it's just a case of people just find a job and they like it and they go, well, this will do. But all the jobs, of course, that I had were making me very miserable and very unfulfilled. And because, of course, it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing, right? And then tragically in 2010, my grandparents were killed in a fire, which was awful. Yeah, it was awful. And as well as like the grief and the shock we had to deal with the police and the media, and it was just awful. It kind of really just tore the family upside down. But the other thing that it did on top of all that was that it made me stop. It made me stop the treadmill behavior. It made me question who I was and what I wanted and where I was going. Because, you know, before that, I kind of feel like you're on this hamster wheel and you just keep going and keep going and keep going because you don't stop. And then, of course, the universe sends you signs and you're not listening. So eventually they'll put you on your knees and make you listen, right? As was the case. And then a couple of months later, I met a friend of my mum's who was a psychic medium. And literally the first words out of her mouth to me were, "You can do what I can do, you know." And I was like, pardon? I hadn't even, although like I kind of had a brief interest in the paranormal as a teenager, as I think a lot of teenagers do, it was never something that I fully kind of followed, or kind of explored at very great depth. So for her to say that to me, but then she also mentored me and helped me kind of bring out my gifts and taught me how to use the tarot cards and how to connect to my abilities. And it was a revelation. It was a sense almost of coming home. It was a sense of, oh, this is who I am, you know?
So right, isn't it? It fits like a glove when you awaken to it.
Yeah.
And so how did you start teaching it to others? Obviously, you've been developing it for a number of years now. And what made you kind of step fully into it as your work?
Only because people kept asking me. So you find this, like, I think that it's almost like the student makes the teacher appear after a while. So clients kept asking me, like, how to connect or how to find out who their angels were or how to use the cards. And the more that, because of course, like I say, I'd been a high school teacher. So that teaching ability was already there. It was just a case of doing it in a different way. And the more that I kept being asked, the more I realized that people actually really needed to know this stuff. You know, we take it for granted, I think, that yes, we all have the ability, of course we do, but a lot of people don't even know where to begin on how to tap into that. So I don't necessarily, there's no real, I feel, accredited courses, not about paying a lot of money, but I just felt like I would teach from what I had learned and my experiences, and it seems to be something that's been actually really helped people. So I'm, thankful.
It's really good, isn't it? Because you sort of seem to teach from the ground up, don't you? You kind of give people a real entry point into it and show them the basics, and then they can build on that. It's really good foundation, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even now I do mentoring, spiritual mentoring, and like I start literally from the ground up, like you say. So I'll try and see, like, why do they want to learn? What's their background? What's their childhood experiences? I teach them about grounding and psychic protection, and then we build on, whatever it is they're interested in, whether that's using the cards or psychic development or even mediumship. But you have to start from the bottom. There's no point me teaching somebody how to read cards unless they know the basics first. You can't just jump into it, because it's almost too much. You have to kind of build, like making a tower out of Lego. You have to get the foundation right first.
You need your foundations, don't you? You need to know the basics, especially at the moment. I mean, as we're recording this for the viewers, it's actually full moon eclipse, and the energies have been all over the place, really, just quietly for the last few months, and we're just kind of easing in the pandemic lockdown, aren't we? So should we just talk a little bit about what's going on currently, and how you're helping people to navigate through all of this, and how are you navigating through all of this at the moment?
It's been tough, as it has been for everybody. I'm a single parent of 3 kids. So my 8-year-old twins have been with me pretty much every day for the last 16 weeks at the time of recording this. So I feel like I'm spinning plates every day, trying to balance educating and entertaining them, running the home, running my business, trying to make time for self-care. It's a lot,
I don't even have time to organize myself. How do you organize you and 3 children? And like, my husband is almost like the mother figure of our family. Like, I just finished with a client tonight, and he comes in and is like, "Can you eat corn?" I'm like, oh, it's crazy. Can you eat corn? I'm on this crazy diet, detox thing. But I think you're amazing. You're like super mom on top of everything else that you do.
Thank you. I mean, I'm not superhero in the sense of, like, I'm not some kind of crazy smiley cartoon character. I have had moments where I've cried. I've had moments where I've been angry and frustrated and stressed and said some words that, might rhyme with duck and cough. But I think that the key thing is, I mean, I've been on this real self-love journey for the last few years. And the thing I've learned about that is that it's not like, you don't get to a certain point and think, right, that's it now. I'm sorted. Everything's fantastic. I don't have to do any work or any growth. I'm done. It's an ongoing, lifelong process. And some days I feel like I can kind of get on with it and, try and do the best I can. And it's not too bad. And other days are really rubbish, and I get guilt and blame myself, and I'm shouting at everybody, and it's all but the thing is, I just go, it's just a day, and things are really rough right now. So I think to be patient and compassionate and kind to yourself, no matter what's going on, is really the key to all of it, really.
It is, and it's keeping it real too, isn't it? We're all human, however divine and angelic we are. We're still human, and it's not all smooth sailing. And I think that's the thing. Everyone talks about it being the journey or a journey, and that we're trying to get to some destination, and like enlightenment or ascension is a place you get to. But really, I think it's just acceptance, isn't it? It's just coming into that place of cool. Things are happening almost with non-judgment, coming at it from a more of a neutral, loving, observing type place, without judging ourselves and each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key thing for me is that even on my bad days, what it's given me is an understanding and a wisdom that this too shall pass. And it's just a bad day. It's not my final destination. It's not a permanent destination. It gives me greater awareness so that I can understand what's going on and why, and have faith that always that things will get better, that I'm not on my own, that the universe has my back, the angels have my back, and it's just a blip, you know. At the moment, the world's going through a massive blip. I would call it a bit of a cultural reset and a bit of a societal reset, but we will come through it. What the world looks like afterwards is going to be interesting, but we will come through this time, because it can't rain forever, right?
No, it's true. This too shall pass, really, isn't it? It's so interesting. I know myself and a lot of the empaths out there, we're sort of just almost hunkering down and sort of waiting to see what's going to happen. I mean, obviously, I know you probably do as well, honey. Lots of work behind the scenes and meditating and pouring love out into the collective. And I often get shown themes in my own life that are like a microcosm of the macrocosm. And I know a lot of really gifted women like yourself that are touching into those themes. And I think that's why it can feel so hard for us when we're going through our own stuff. It literally does feel like you're carrying the world on your shoulders, doesn't it?
Yeah, and of course, as an empath, not everything you're feeling is yours, right? So you're tapping into this, whether it's your family, your friends, or even your country or the world. You know, there are days where the energy is really heavy, and you can find yourself, like I say, upset or angry or anxious or stressed. And it's to kind of go, okay, how am I feeling? Why am I feeling like this? Is all of this mine?
You find yourself going into like, what's the astrology? What's the Schumann resonance doing? Is there any EMF in my environment? What I go like, what clients have I got today? And is that mine? Like to separate out what's mine and what's there. You got to go through like a checklist, and then after you've done that, it's like, okay, cool, this bit's mine. Cool, I'll work on this bit.
And trying to clear away the stuff that's not yours, right? So, as you know, we both work with the angels. So, like I say, cord cutting with Archangel Michael seems to be now my daily go-to. I'm just constantly asking him to cut all my cords, just to try and protect my own
sword
energy.
Hoover.
Bless him. I think he's like, oh God, here we go again. Bless him.
Oh my God, I love it. But I think it's about keeping it real, trying to stay grounded in the midst of all of it too, I think is really key. What do you have a set process that you can share with people to kind of cleanse and align your space during this time? I kind of feel like this might be helpful for people that your tricks of the trade, maybe.
Self-care first and foremost, as much as you possibly can. That doesn't mean you have to eat salad and drink water, okay? I am not an advocate for like completely clean living. I know that you are trying your best.
I'm trying. It's day one.
I'm not.
Only because it's been so far from that for so long. I'm only wearing elasticated trousers now.
The self-care means giving your body what it needs in any moment. And some days that will be chocolate and cake, and other days it will be, a salad and some, grilled chicken or whatever. It's just listen to your body and what it actually needs. It's to try and stay hydrated as much as you can, and that means not alcohol. That does mean like water. Trying to get sleep. Of course, a lot of people have found it hard to sleep at the moment, to get good quality sleep. I don't put too much pressure on myself with that. My mum said to me, as long as you're in bed resting and nobody wants you for anything, don't stress too much about being asleep, because that can give you more anxiety and more stress.
That's great advice, actually, because you can lie there going, why am I not sleeping?
Yeah, I think, as a busy single mom, I'm lying in bed, nobody wants me for anything. So I'm just going to let myself rest. It's fine. And actually, when you rest like that, you will find that you naturally fall asleep anyway. Right? So, but in terms of spiritual cleansing and stuff, I am a big fan of the bubble. I love to bubble my energy, a spiritual protection bubble. So in the morning, I just visualize, I actually triple layer my bubble now. So I have pink on the inside for love. And then I have lead, right? Because nothing getting through that. And then I have platinum on the outside, which sends any negativity back to sender. So I literally triple layer myself. I'm a big fan of saging my house. So I sage to clear the energy, to clear any negative or toxic stuff that has seemingly gotten in. The kids don't particularly like the smell, but hey ho. What are you going to do? And I also try and watch what I am watching, reading, absorbing from the media. So I have breaking BBC News headlines on my phone. So I know what's going on, but I don't watch the news. I physically do not watch like the 6 o'clock or 10 o'clock news, because it makes me feel worse. It makes me feel really anxious and depressed and fed up, and it's all going to go to crap, and let's just, give up now. I try and watch my social media intake, and my favorite platform is Instagram, which is actually fairly positive.
Me too. I quite like Insta.
I have to watch Twitter, because I find that with Twitter I can get a bit almost obsessive to keep refreshing the feed, and most of it is quite fear-based, so I try and limit my time on there. It can be quite entertaining at times though to watch people. You feel like you want to get some popcorn and you'd be like, oh my god, what are they arguing about?
Especially when there's arguments going back and forth,
yeah,
or
and you're not
discussions.
involved, but like, oh my god. But you are, everything that you absorb, and it's not just food and drink, it's also what you're watching, what you're reading, what you're listening to. All that stuff is going to affect you. And if you are listening and reading low vibe energy that's based in fear, it's going to make you feel worse. It's not rocket science here, but people seem to forget that. Then they get obsessed with all the news and the fear, and then wonder why they feel like rubbish. You consciously have to go out of your way to find positivity. And I'm a huge fan of comedy. And people might think that I'm being really like naive and kind of ostrich mentality.
No.
But it keeps me positive. It keeps me smiling. It keeps me, so even if I'm having a bad day, it cheers me up and makes me feel like I can cope with it. It's like, I really go out of my way to find comedy.
I need your recommendations, girl, because that's something I say to people all the time. It's like, just sometimes you have to put the spiritual hat, take the spiritual hat off and just be a normal girl, cook some nice food, watch a comedy, go in the garden, read a novel, do some. It doesn't have to always be this constant.
But it's all spiritual. It's all spiritual.
Because we can't be anything but, can we?
Exactly. Spirituality is not something that I do on a Sunday. It's who I am. It's my life, and it's all spiritual. So absolutely. I think comedy is spiritual because it's raising your vibration. So I see it as a positive thing anyway.
I love it. It's so true. I always say, we're just as sacred, we're just as holy doing our grocery shopping and sitting on the loo as we are sitting in meditation. You can't be outside of it.
Your intention is everything. It's your intention behind what you're doing. So if your intention is that, okay, I'm waking up in a bad mood and everything is rubbish and I'm going to have a really bad day, then you will have a bad day. Doesn't matter what you're doing. Doesn't matter if you're sitting on your meditation mat. If you're in that mood that it's a bad day, everything's going to go wrong for you. Whereas if you have the intention that today is a good day and I'm going to have a good day and everything's going to be wonderful and filled with love, even when things don't go great, you approach it from a completely different energy and it doesn't pull you down. You just go, okay, that was that, it's fine. You can almost sometimes even try and laugh at stuff,
Oh, you have to, at the moment, you have to laugh at how ridiculous everything seems. I'm laughing constantly at my own life at the moment. It's quite funny. Not even to go into details, but you kind of moment to moment, it's like, oh, that's really, the juxtaposition is incredible. That's really great. That's not so great. And you're kind of sitting here going, it's like the yo-yo, but you kind of got to stay in the middle and be the middle of the scales, I think, balance everything.
Yeah, as much as you can. I think if you find yourself on one side of the seesaw or another in any moment, it's not to judge yourself for that. Not to be too hard on yourself. It's just to go, okay, we'll try and come back to center. We'll try and find some balance. We won't judge ourselves because that just brings more crap to the table. It's just, that's not going to make you feel better,
We don't need any more crap on the table.
No.
It sounded really wrong. I love it. I just love how down to earth and how measured and balanced you are, my love, and how, you know, how you just keep it real. It's brilliant. But I also want to delve in a little bit and talk to you about your gifts and how they work. So, like, how do you experience your kind of psychic messages? Are you clairvoyant, clairaudient, all of it? What's the experience like for you? I like to get inside people's heads and
That's cool.
and
Don't
hear
worry.
about it. Yeah.
When I teach it, I always link it back to what your predominant learning style was when you were at school, right? You can tell if you're a teacher. And for me, I am very visual, always very visual. So my dominant is clairvoyant, right? So I see an awful lot. However, I don't believe most people don't just have one ability. You'll have one dominant one, of course, but there's other stuff as well. What I found is that your abilities, they tend to come and go, not completely, but it's like some are more stronger at times than others. At the moment, I'm fine. I'm quite clairaudient, so that I'm hearing things, whether it's with my physical ears or inside my brain. They seem to have a sense of humour with me at the moment and keep giving me really random songs that have messages in them, to the point when I say random, I'm talking about like cartoon theme tunes, like SpongeBob SquarePants and Peppa Pig.
You're
and
like
I'm
Bumblebee on Transformers, aren't you?
yeah, pretty much. Sometimes I can be clairsentient, which is where it's through touch, so that you feel a connection that way. Although that tends to be rarer, it does tend to be what I'm feeling, seeing and hearing tends to be my dominant, but seeing is the most one that I, you know, and to the point that I see orbs and flashes of light, and I'll see like shadows in my peripheral, because people don't realize that. I love this, right? I'm getting into it now. Your subconscious brain, where you connect with spirit, works in your peripheral vision, not your dominant forward vision, right? So people will see stuff out the corner of their eye. And so what you naturally do is this: you turn towards it to see what it is. But because it's peripheral, when you look at it face on, you can't see it anymore. But that doesn't mean it's not there.
It's like the rainbow, isn't it? When you kind of,
right?
The closer you get, the more it kind of vanishes from you.
Yeah. So say like a family member in spirit has come to visit you, and you see a shadow at the corner of your eye, and so you turn to look at it and it's gone.
Yeah.
That spirit is still there. It's just you can't. Your brain tells you that you can't see it anymore. It's kind of the best way
you kind of got to give them side eye.
Yeah, you do. Not in kind of,
you soften your gaze too, don't
way.
you? Like when you're doing mediumship and things, I was always taught to just soften my gaze and sort of almost look off into the person's aura without looking directly at it. It's a different way of seeing. Well, when you're doing it physically, isn't it?
Yeah, and it takes practice, because like I say, we're not taught to think that way. We're not taught to use our senses that way. But spirituality is doing things that you know differently, things that you might not normally do. That's kind of the whole point. It's use your brain.
Spiritual side eye. I love it.
But it's like not in a kind of snarky, nasty kind of way. Not that kind of side eye. It's not like
Let me adjust my focus. One thing I've been finding too, Katie, is because I'm like you, I'm very clairvoyant, but I have also in recent years been working a lot through my emotional body, and I realized my body awareness, my feeling awareness is actually more psychic than the rest of me. So I'll feel stuff way before it happens, and I was feeling all this panic in my body last year and didn't know what was going on, but it felt big. And then obviously the pandemic hit, and I realized that my body was reacting to something that was coming up. So it's really interesting. But what I've asked now, because I find that you can sort of direct it a little bit as well, and I said it's too much to keep bringing it up through my emotional body, because it just floors me. It's a lot to bring other people, and it's almost like I'm not bringing it up through my body, but I'm feeling it and sensing it. When I work with clients, I'll feel what they're feeling, and I just said, look, just please don't show me higher self through my emotions for a while. I need to have a break from that. Can I just hear and see the way I used to work, which is I used to work just fully clairvoyantly and clairaudiently. And then I think it was when I started doing a lot of womb work that it became much more embodied, but it just ends up being way too much. So, and it's worked actually. I've always been visual, but it's gone much more into my clairaudience is a lot stronger now, and the clairvoyance, and it's a different way of work. I still feel, but not to the point where it's overwhelming, because it can be overwhelming, can't it, when you're picking up on other people's emotions. And
Absolutely. I mean, I know that from even dealing with my own stuff, you know, when I was going through the breakup of my marriage, and I wasn't fully dealing with it. I was the ostrich in the sand mentality, and I'm fine. My body soon let me know that actually I wasn't fine at all, because I think that emotions, if they're not dealt with, are like bubbles and lemonade. It's to the point that you push and push and push, they have to come up and out somewhere, right? So I ended up with IBS, and I ended up covered in eczema pretty much from head to toe, because the stress that I was swallowing and pushing down it was like, okay, if you can't deal with this mentally, we're going to come out in your body and your emotions and show you what's going on. And it wasn't until I kind of went to counselling and kind of really looked at it and saw what was going on that I started to healing and started to kind of process it. But it was just interesting to see how your body will give you messages that sometimes your brain isn't ready to deal with or accept right now.
Yes, it's another language altogether, isn't it? Until you can't ignore it anymore.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, can you tell us about your books? Because you've got quite a few books out, and you know, I know that there's some about angels and mostly about self-love, aren't they? So how many have you got out?
4 today. With. Yes. My first book was in 2014. I'd always wanted to be a writer, but it was almost like a secret that I didn't think that I was good enough. Somehow, like, I was kind of measuring myself against like the best-selling authors and thought, well, I'm not that good, I can't do that. But that kind of, I think if you have a passion and a dream, that it never really goes away, right? It's always there somewhere. And after I had the twins, I kind of found myself, obviously, this stay-at-home mum, and of course babies nap, you know, during the day and stuff. And so I thought, well, there's never really been a better time for me just to try. My whole point at first was just to try and write a book, you know, just to see if I could actually do it, which I did. And I wrote, my first book was called Chasing Rainbows. It's a spiritual novel. And I did try and send it off to publishers, kind of thinking that I'd be like J.K. Rowling from the get-go. And of course, rejection's part of the process. So I self-published that, and then I self-published my second book, which was Little White Feathers, which was about angels and angelic connection. And then when I was going through my marriage breakup, I wrote, because I was really struggling with how to be happy and how to find my happiness. And so I tend to write the books that I need to read at that time in my life. So I wrote it as almost journaling and therapy for myself, but also to help other people, obviously. And to my amazement, O Books agreed to publish it. So that was Happiness Make Your Soul Smile in 2018. And then this year, in February, they also published Self-Love Pledge, which was my journey from really not liking myself at all, really low self-esteem, to coming to a place where actually thinking I'm pretty fabulous, actually, and teaching other people how to do that for themselves, because I realized that a lot of people struggle with that, you know.
It is, and especially women, I find, and I know you do a lot of empowering work with women. So can you tell us a little bit about your work with women? And I know that it's this whole divine feminine thing is not just about women, but I do think it's a really important aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've always considered myself to be a feminist. I don't think feminism is a dirty word. I think if you believe in equality at all, then you are a feminist. It's simply, that's what it is. It's the bottom line. And when I saw Me Too and Time's Up, I was like really like, oh, this is going to be brilliant. This is going to be the thing that changes everything. And of course, it did to a point. But I think what it also did was that it made a lot of women kind of feel like they weren't doing anything, or they weren't good enough, or they weren't showing up. And actually, it brought up a lot of self-esteem issues and confidence issues. And through, through my coaching and my readings and my mentoring, I realized that a lot of women were really hard on themselves, didn't like who they were, felt that they were failing in their life, felt that they weren't living up to their potential, and it really upset me. Last year, I went and did a talk in Cambridge with the Inspiral group, and on the way home on the train, I was really flat and fed up. And I was like, this is weird. The talk went really well. Why am I feeling this way? And it was because I didn't have anything in the pipeline. I didn't have anything to look forward to. And then the angels were like, do it yourself. This message came through over and over, and I was like, I can't do that. I've never done any kind of empowerment event in my life. I wouldn't even know where to start. But they wouldn't let it go. And the message kept coming and coming and coming. So like the books, I went, oh, we'll give it a go, right? We'll just see what happens. Because I've run workshops before, and I know that some of them can be fantastic and some of them are not so great, but it's all a learning experience, right? So last November, I organised and ran my first women's empowerment event in Norwich called Rise. And we had 10 amazing women speakers and me. And we all shared our stories. We all shared what we've been through in terms of our trauma, our challenges, but also how we overcome them and turned our lives around and what we're doing now. And we had 60 women come to sit in and be a part of that event. It sold out with 4 weeks before the event, which blew my head off. I was like, what? It was insane. And it was an amazing day. It was a day of just laughter and sisterhood and emotion and connection. It was just incredible, to the point that I'm doing it again. And of course, I know, I'm so excited. And of course, you're going to be one of my speakers, which is just I'm so excited. I was supposed to be in September, but of course, coronavirus means we don't know when yet, but we'll just obviously, watch this space. It will happen. It's just
it will happen.
When
it's divine timing, isn't it, Katie? It's all going to happen exactly when it's needed.
Yes, because I think women empower themselves through sisterhood, through seeing themselves reflected back in somebody else, by seeing another woman and their journey and seeing how they've overcome and how they've turned their life around empowers you to do the same. I really think the society has made sisterhood something that's kind of dangerous and something where we don't really fully trust each other, and there's that kind of competition and that jealousy, when actually sisterhood is our biggest tool to fully empower ourselves. And I just try and keep encouraging that as much as I can.
I love it. I think it's great. I can't wait till we can do it. It'll be amazing. No, I love it. I think it's really timely. It needs to happen, more of these groups, more of these support groups for all kinds of people, because so many people, especially now with this all going on, a lot of people's insecurities are coming to the surface. People just genuinely feel a little bit uncertain. We're in so much uncertainty, aren't we? And for you to bring something like this together is just great. It's amazing. So I can't wait.
It's going to be fab. And I don't feel precious about it. My dream would be that other women felt inspired to go and run their own events. And I think the more that we can kind of encourage each other to rise and to stand in our power, the greater the balance we can bring to the world as a whole. Absolutely. Like you say, the divine feminine is, we all have male and female energy within us, no matter what your gender is. But women have been so oppressed for so long that I really feel, in terms of breaking down the patriarchy, it is important to hold a place for women to fully step into their power. I really do believe that. I
do as well. And we can't kind of bypass it. I think there's a danger of bypassing it by saying, oh, it's all balance of this and that. Then you're overlooking a whole half of our society's trauma, and that needs to surface and heal, much like the race stuff needs to surface and heal. We all need to be given a voice. We all need to be given platforms in which to be heard and bring it all out into the open. It needs to be acknowledged, really, first and foremost, doesn't it? And that's
absolutely. Absolutely. I see things all the time, where women's stories are being acknowledged and heard. Body Form, the company, obviously in America and the UK, have done a thing now called Womb Stories, where it's women sharing from periods to birth to the menopause to miscarriage, and it's them sharing their stories. And I think there is real power in that, because women, again, are made to feel like anything to do with that part of their body is almost a bit dirty and a bit taboo and a bit, we don't talk about that. Well, actually, that's one of your big places of power. You know, half the population have a womb. It's not something to be embarrassed about. We should talk about it.
Yeah, not out of sight, out of mind. It's like, well, most of the time the womb runs the show, people. Like, it has its own mind and personality. So if the womb's angry, then the woman is angry. So keep the womb happy.
Absolutely. Know that one very well.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, I'm just realizing we could talk forever. I could carry on going into hours, but is there anything, any parting words you would like to say to our viewers before we sort of start to wrap up?
I suppose the biggest thing, like I say, I'm all about empowerment. And I think the thing to realize is, first and foremost, is that we spend so much of our life being taught almost to that, you know, you get your worth and validation through other people, and that we're also keen to give our love away to other people, and that by doing so, that somehow makes you a better person, that if you can find the right partner, that suddenly that makes you a better person. And it drives me balmy, and I'm sorry for anybody who's triggered by this, when people say they have made me complete, they have made me whole. No. I'm like, are you kidding me? You are whole within yourself as you are. You don't need another person to fill you up. I absolutely love RuPaul's Drag Race. It's one of my favorite shows. And she says, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? And it's true. It has to start with you. Self-love is not selfish. It's not narcissistic. Of course, there are people who take it to that place, but that's a whole different side thing, right? But actually,
we might need a second show.
Yeah, self-love in itself is the foundation of everything. I really believe that it's the foundation of your happiness, of your well-being, of good relationships with other people. It's really, really important. It starts with you. And if you're in that space where you don't like yourself, you know, you're really struggling to accept yourself for who you are, it's important now to spend some time really getting to learn who you are, what it is you like about yourself, making the most of yourself, what you want for yourself. All these things are really, really important. And we have this time now, right? Life has slowed down. Life has kind of come to a pause. So use this time productively to go within and spend some time with yourself. You know, you're not a bad person. You're not a horrible person. You deserve to love yourself too.
It's so good. It's so beautiful. Even 5 minutes a day, if you build it in, can make the world of difference. I'd say I get a lot of my clients just to look in the mirror, and they're really awkward about it, but look in the mirror and just say, I love you, and really love yourself. And you'll probably find you'll absolutely start cracking yourself laughing after a while, because you feel like you look so ridiculous. But even that raises your vibration, doesn't it?
Yeah, the thing is,
goofy.
The thing is that's important to know is that the brain takes 90 days of showing up every day to form new pathways, new like links in your brain. And so it's going to take 90 days of you showing up, saying, I love you, you matter, you're important, you're worthy, to your brain to accept that as true. And you will laugh, and you will want to run, and you will cry. But the more that you show up for yourself, the more that you commit to yourself, the more your brain will accept it as true.
And you have a few minutes. If you have a bad thought about yourself, you can say cancel, clear, delete, and reset it.
Yes, absolutely.
Do that all the time.
Yeah. If you had a bad thought about yourself, immediately think of 3 things that you like about yourself to counteract it.
Exactly. I love
Definitely. It's really powerful stuff. People kind of go, yeah, it's a bit like hashtag, it's a bit woo-woo, it's a bit fancy.
I think we overthink things, don't we? We think it's too simple. We think surely it can't be that easy, but actually it is that easy. It's just go to that place and be there. And even us guys who are healers, we have to remind ourselves constantly, don't we, to keep bringing ourselves back, just come back to your center, take it day by day, be more self-loving, just remind it. These little reminders, we're all here to remind each other. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely, because your ego doesn't go away just because you're spiritual. You know what I mean? It's not like you can suddenly get rid of your ego. It's just, it doesn't mean it has to run the show, right?
Yeah, exactly. It almost needs more keeping in check, because it can hide more.
Yeah, it hides being like the light and, you know, higher vibration. And you're like, really? Come back, come back.
I find I'm not allowed to do that. The rug comes out from under me. The minute I get too big for my boots, it's like, yoink, not allowed.
Like the angels giving you a spiritual smackdown. It's like,
spiritual
no.
smackdown. It's so true. Spiritual slap. There's no room for that ego in here, loves. But you know, your ego can equally keep you too small. So you've also got to watch it that way, which is...
Yeah, it's a balancing act. I always say some days, even now, I am Beyonce and I'm hair flicking and I'm fabulous. And other days I am Gollum. And that's, you know, it is.
Oh, I love it.
Especially at the moment in lockdown, I think I have more Gollum days than I do Beyonce.
Other days you're like an amalgamation of Beyonce and Gollum and doing the hair flick with
that's a weird
I just had visuals going on.
That's just weird. I can't do it. I've not got Gollum doing single ladies.
I've got Gollum with a wig on dancing around. Oh my God, Katie. I really needed this chuckle. It's really good.
Oh, pleasure.
Oh, she's so good. So how can people find you, honey? What can you share your website and all your social handles and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, it's important to know how to spell my surname. You'd be surprised over the years. My surname is Oman, and it's spelled like the country, so it's Oman, right? First and foremost. But my website is katieoman.co.uk. You've got there my readings, my books, all my courses. There's a whole heap of stuff on there. There's free stuff on there as well, so it's great. But my handle across all social media platforms is the same, because I realized that just makes life so much easier. It's Katie Oman, and then it's 4 1s. So it's Katie Oman 1111. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on, if you put that in, you will find me.
Brilliant. I love it. I love that it adds up to 4.
Oh, I love
11 too, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You've got all the numerology covered in there.
Well, yeah, and the kind of numbers is one of my big signs that keeps popping up, you know. It's one of my ways that kind of, they get my attention, so, yeah.
The gateway, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, honey, it's so brilliant talking to you. Thank you so much for being on the show. Any final parting words before we go?
Just know that if you're struggling right now, that it's, like I say, it's okay. We all are to some degree. It doesn't matter what people are posting on social media. That's their highlight reel. You know, they may not talk about what's really going on, but I do believe everyone is struggling to some degree. But it's okay. Know too that this shall pass. It may pass like a kidney stone, but it will pass, and we'll all come out the other side. And life will come out stronger and more connected than ever before. We just have to get you this next bit.
I love it. Oh, thank you, my darling. Such an honor to have you on the show. And just to everyone watching, thank you so much for joining us. Do comment below and let us know what you think, and any questions or anything. Love to hear from you. And yeah, till next time, thank you for watching the Alexandra Wenman Show.
Thank you, Alexandra. Lots of luck to everybody. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you.
Bye.